Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Before we get into the show, I wanted to remind you guys this week, the mini goat is back. Our little mini goat knife is awesome for putting in your pocket. It's become very popular for everyday carry, but you can also use it in the field. So it's a little mini speed goat, paracord handle, super cool little knife. That's dropping on Thursday night, 7 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. Check it out. This week, my guest is Derek Wolfe. I've got to know Derek a bit kind of through social media. A lot of you guys might have actually already kind of seen some of his story following Joe Rogan. He was just on the Rogan Podcast. Derek is an awesome guy. He's an ex-NFL football player. He's an absolute giant of a man, Viking, but also just a giant personality and really a great human. He came up for our grand opening party here. He stayed in my house. We got to know each other really well, and he's just a gem of a person. So he's starting a YouTube channel, Wolfe Untamed. He's an absolute gem of a person. He's a good friend. Honored to call him a friend, and we had a really great conversation. So enjoy the show. Derek Wolfe. Glad to have you, buddy.
It's good to be up here, man. Thank you for having me. Appreciate the hospitality.
No, man.
Treat me like family, man. I appreciate that.
Well, absolutely. It's super cool that you made the trip up here. We're having, kind of a grand opening party here at the shop, and, it kind of blows me away how many people made, like, big epic trips to get here. So I couldn't be more appreciative of all those people and of you to come up. So it means a lot.
Well, I know just from the people I've talked to, your reputation is just immaculate. And what you've been able to accomplish is like, I know people tell me that my story is inspiring, but like I think a lot of people should be inspired by what you've been able to accomplish here and what you're building, because it's proof that the American dream is still alive.
100%.
Like it's there. If you find something that you love and you chase that dream, do things the right way, treat people the right way.
Yep.
You can make it. You could be successful.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate that. And that's 100% true. Cause I was just a regular guy, working a day job and had people tell me that it wasn't possible. Like I had to go to China to have parts made to compete with the big boys and all that, and it's like, I don't believe that. Like I believe, but it takes support. I mean, it does take a village, you got to have good people behind you, family first. You got to have support at home. And then, you got to obviously make some smart moves. But then this industry as a whole, certain people within it started supporting us, and honestly, it was more of a, it really started at Bert Soren's at Winter Strong. And it was a lot of people like you that go to that event that are ex-athletes or current and former pro athletes and Olympians, and also businessmen and women and people in the outdoor industry. It's a real mix. And all those people were like, you can do it. And when you sit and listen to their stories, I was like, why can't we? Like, I know we can do this.
Yeah, why not me, right?
Yeah. And we just started super small. I didn't borrow any money. I wasn't going to risk my family's like well-being for it. I started doing it in the morning before work and at night after work. And just started building slow. And I do think sometimes a mistake people make is they go out and they try to just like borrow a ton of money first, and they quit their job. And I had a guy call me the other day, and he's like wanting some business advice, and he's like been at this for a year and a half. He's remortgaged his house. He's borrowed all the money he can borrow, and he has no sales going on. This isn't a knife maker. It's a different, art form kind of, but, I said, dude, you need to go get a job, because he was afraid he's going to lose his house. And I said, well, because I was asking him, what are you doing? What's your day job? He's like, well, I'm not. I'm going at this full time. Like I committed to it. And I have people that write me and they're like, you inspired me. I'm going to quit my job. And I'm like, man, keep your job, sleep less.
Yeah.
First.
Yeah.
Like if your bills are paid, build this on the side. And if it's really something that's going, eventually you're going to have to quit your job. My wife kept telling me to quit mine. And I was like, because I had a good job, making a good living.
Yeah,
and
it's hard to give up that.
It felt selfish for me. This is what I wanted to do. But with the less selfish thing would have been to just keep working that job because that was safe.
Right.
And she was like, you got to quit. You got to do this. And to have that's that support piece.
Fully bought in, right? You have to fully buy in. You put the effort in because I'm sure it started out as like just a hobby, right? Something you like doing, you enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
And then eventually it turns into something else.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, do I hedge all my bets against this?
Right.
It's like there's a choice to be made. And a lot of people make the wrong choice. And there's a time for it, right? So like when you talk about the borrowing money, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think people make the mistake of just like trying to get rich quick, right? They want to get rich quick, but like everybody that's wealthy that I know, that the best advice they give me is that you want to get rich slow.
Yeah.
The best way to get rich is to get rich slow because you want to hit a bunch of singles, quit looking for that home run.
Yep.
Right? Just hit a bunch of singles and then eventually you're going to start hitting doubles and then eventually it's going to be home run.
Yep.
And that's just the way it works. And the people that think like, oh, I just got to hit it quick, do it fast, do it now. We live in a world now where everything is like instant gratification, right? So like the patience that people don't have, they don't have the patience to just kind of let things build, put the work in, put the time in,
right?
And they're not willing to put that grind in, day out.
I love that like it's almost that like drop down a bunt mentality. Instead of swinging for a home run, drop down a bunt and get to first base. Try to steal second. Sacrifice bunt over to third, right? And all of a sudden you got a run on the board pretty quick. And then get another one. And that was the other nice thing about not having investors, not having a bank and outside money, is there wasn't the pressure to have to make moves. Initially, we didn't make any moves that were money-oriented. We gave away a ton of knives in the beginning. And with no expectation. Like, we sent them out, just, hey, try it out, let us know what you think, whatever. And not like, hey, will you post this many posts, or will you do this, or will you do that? Just no expectations, and just try to let the product speak for itself. Start to build the relationship. And I told you, I mean, my favorite part of this whole thing that we're doing is the relationship side. And I don't care if you're a NFL football player or a businessman or who you are. Like, if you're an asshole or I don't like respect you or like you as a man or a person, I don't give a shit. Like, you wouldn't be staying in my house.
Right.
And to me, it was super important for us in the beginning to build the right relationships on true, like, this is friendships. And then the business side just started to follow, right?
Well, to kind of piggyback that, when you build a relationship with somebody when you go into business with somebody who's like a friend, right? And I want to see you succeed. I don't want money from you. I don't want anything other than to see you succeed because I appreciate you as a person.
Right.
And I love the company and I love what you're doing. So I'm not in it to look for like, what can I get from you? Right. It's like, what can I do to help you? Because I enjoy being around you and I enjoy the process of watching what you're doing. And I love seeing you do a drop and then 7 minutes later it's sold out.
Right.
It's like, to me, that's like, I love seeing other people's success.
Yeah.
Like I love to see that. Like it is, it's almost like when you're hunting, right? And your buddy kills a big elk. You're like, dude, I'm just as fired up as if I did it.
Exactly.
Like that's, to me, that's like when my people that I consider friends and that I develop relationships with, when they have success, that's the kind of people I want to be around. And you are who you surround yourself with.
Yes, 100%. And now it's kind of cool because we're starting to get into that position where now I feel like I can start going back and paying that back a little bit of like some of those people that have supported us. We can now start to do a little bit of sponsoring their thing. And we've now gained enough of a following that like, hey, we're worth working with. We can help sponsor your thing, or we can help sponsor this video, or pay you as an ambassador, right, or something like that. And we've done that with a couple people that helped us from the start when they really shouldn't have. Like, they had no financial reason to think that what we were going to do was going to work or be of an advantage to them. And like, I remember that stuff. Like, I remember the people and I also remember the people who didn't
doubted you.
Yeah. Like, those are the people that really drove me. Like, there's one guy, and I love him, he's a friend, but there's one guy in particular that I'll always remember in my head, standing in Arizona in another guy's shop. And he told me what I was going to do was impossible. And I showed him a knife, and he's like, yeah, it's not going to, that won't work. And I was like, watch, and I love that guy. That was his opinion. He didn't think it was going to happen, but, no, it's super cool. And that whole idea too of, I've said that a lot I was on a podcast the other day and somebody asked me my favorite hunting adventure I've been on, like hunting story. I was like, every one of my favorite hunting stories are when I've been with somebody else that killed something. And most of them are my kids. But like a guy that I saw a bull across the river right here on this mountain from my house, and I called him. He owned the golf course here locally. I'm like, dude, there's an elk up there. Let's go. He had never shot an elk. And like 8 hours later, right before dark, I bugled that bull in, and he shot it with his bow. And I would, if I was the one shooting, I would not have been as excited as I was for that guy. Of like, he shot that at 6 yards with his bow, and he was over the moon. You know, like those are the best. You know, especially hunting with your kids. But speaking of hunting, dude.
Well, hold on. Before we go to that, I want to piggyback on. Again, I want to piggyback on what you said about. This is why we get along so well, because we can relate. It's crazy. We come from totally different worlds, but we can relate on so many levels of people telling us that we can't do something. From a young age, like I told you, 7 years old.
Yeah, I
decided I was going to play football. And that's what I was going to do. And I would tell teachers that. They'd ask me, what are you going to do? And I'd say, I'm going to play football. And they'd, well, what are you really going to do? I'm going to play football.
Yeah.
Well, that's not going to work. You're not going to play football. Like most people don't make it.
Right. Do you know the percentage of
the percentage? It's less than 1% of people that make it. This and that. They're like, you need to have a backup plan. No.
Yeah.
No backup plan. I put all my eggs in one basket, and it worked.
Yeah.
Because I put the work in. And that's what you're doing. You're putting the work in. You put the time in. You build the relationships. And a lot of kids, like I told your son, I told Hank, I said, dude, you live in a world now where people don't want to work hard. Yeah. So you just outwork them. And that'll put you already a step ahead of them.
And that whole idea, too, of that, get rich quick thing, that is the one thing that kind of drives me crazy. Like, yeah, there's a lot of spoiled athletes out there. There's a lot of guys that act like assholes once they get money and stuff. But that whole idea that these guys just instantly get rich, the amount of work and time and effort it takes. Like, I look at what Hank's doing. He's kind of sitting here listening at the table. But the amount of work that, like, Hank's putting in, going to the gym, and he's only 14, going to the gym every morning, going to the gym on Sunday, going to the gym on Saturday, like all that work. If, for example, he was to make it, but call him Peyton Manning or DeMarcus Ware or whoever, or Derek Wolfe, the amount of work that all you guys put in for decades to get to that point, like, you didn't get rich quick. You got rich real slow. Really slow.
It just looks that way because you didn't know about us until...
Slow and painful.
Right. Slow, painful, a lot of injuries. You're dealing with this, you're dealing with that.
Adversity.
A lot of sacrifice. You're sacrificing time with your friends. You're sacrificing relationships. You're sacrificing experiences in life that most people don't, like, that they get to have. Like, people get to go travel the world and do this and do that. Like, when you play football, you don't really get to do that. Well, you have to sacrifice your holidays are sacrificed. Everything. It's all a big sacrifice, but it's worth it. If you love something, it's worth it. And it doesn't matter what you love. It could be you love your wife, you're going to sacrifice for your wife. You love your kids, you sacrifice for your kids. You love your company, you're going to sacrifice for your company. Well, I loved football, and I loved my career. I wanted to have a successful career. So I was like, I'll sacrifice whatever I have to sacrifice to get to where I need to be.
Well, it's why you're really only getting to kind of start hunting now.
Right.
Because you gave that up literally for 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was just
how old are you now?
33.
Yeah. So, okay, you can start hunting when you're 12 or 13. So for 20 years, and I know, like, last year I pulled him out of football season for a week. I was like, and we had never done that in football. Before, I'd always coached his team and whatnot. He was in junior high, but, like, we had an opportunity to go elk hunt in New Mexico with his bow. And I knew, like, high school is coming. So that's going to be hard to leave during high school. So,
yeah.
Hey, man, this is junior high football. We're going hunting. And we did that. But for the most part, these kids are skipping hunting season. They're skipping experiences with their families, with their dad or whoever, during football season, which is September, to play football. And so you sacrificing your outdoors time for 20 years to do what you love, that's a huge sacrifice.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, and you just had to kind of take advantage of, like, off-season things like hog hunting and, access deer and stuff like that, high fences and stuff, because you only get a day or two to go do it, right? You don't get a 5 days to go out to the elk woods and chase elk or, go up to Alaska. Like, you can't do that. You can't risk the injury either.
Yeah.
Because to go in the backwoods, you're risking injury. You just are. So you have to be like selective on what you do and what you don't do. And that's why when I hit retirement, I already had a plan. I was like, I am gonna get after it because it's something I love. I killed my first whitetail with a bow when I was just turning 13 years old.
Yeah.
So, and I was hooked on it and I loved it. I was like,
Were you tree stand hunting?
Yeah, tree stand hunting. But I did it on my own. Like I was at my buddy's farm. I would wake up in the morning, go out there with a climber and that I borrowed from him with a bow that I borrowed from him. And I would climb a tree and
did anybody teach you or did you just figure it out?
I had a little bit of teaching from a guy that was the same age as me. And I just noticed that he was like wrong usually. Yeah. So I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Cause I would tell him like what my plan was. And he'd be like, I don't know, maybe you should do this. And every time I did his plan, the deer would be over where I thought it would be, you know? Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to start doing my own thing. And then the first morning I actually did something that I thought was the right way to do it. It's funny because he put me in where he put me the night before. I was like, I don't know, man. So that morning, I went out there early, like couldn't see anything, took the climber out of the tree real quiet, went to another tree and climbed up. And I passed on like this 8-point that I should have shot.
Yeah.
And the next one thing with antlers came by, I shot it.
Isn't that funny? You're a kid, you're young, and you're already passing on stuff like, not quite big enough.
Right. Well, because it's his, because that's the one thing he did teach me. He was like, look, man, like don't just shoot the first thing that comes by.
Yeah.
Because the only reason I passed on it because on the guy's property next to us, all the way across this field, I could see these 2 big 10-points over there, kind of going back and forth. They fought a little bit, like it was an awesome experience. My experiences in hunting as a kid, my stepdad was everything that he was. The one thing he did do is he introduced hunting to me. Like he was the first person to introduce me to that. And he handed me a 410 during shotgun season, and we went out to one of his buddies' farms. And he sat me under a pine tree and said, "Don't move."
Yeah.
And it was cold as hell, and I was freezing, and I had like steel-toed boots on because it was like his hand-me-down work boots or something.
Right.
So my toes are freezing. Everything's cold. But I did have 2 bucks come in there and start fighting over a doe right in front of me. And I just was like enjoying the experience. I didn't shoot because I was just like, to me, it was so cool to watch that.
Yeah.
And then, 10 minutes later they leave and then I hear pow.
Yeah.
Somebody else shot that buck, so, right. But it was like, I didn't care. I got to experience it. So when I finally was able to put an arrow into one, that's the other thing about bow hunting to me is just like, there's something unnatural about that bang.
Yep.
That doesn't give me the same internal feeling as like the snap of a string.
Sure.
That snap of the string is like, and then the pop of the lungs and,
Well, and it's so intimate. It's so close. I mean, it's just right there. It's like so personal.
Right.
I actually have a little bit of a test of a theory of mine I want to try out on you because I've done this with my kids. With all your athletics that you've done, let's say that, when did you start playing like football? Were you 7, 8 years old?
7 years old, yeah.
So from 7 years old to say 15 years old, 16, I'll exclude maybe like junior, senior year. Do you remember like your best game, your best ever game, like a particular game?
Yeah.
Kinda.
Yeah.
Because what I've been testing this out a little bit with my kids, and it's been interesting the last few years, is I've asked Hank, like in the last, say, 5 or 6 years of all the sports you've done, what's your like number one game? What's the game you just like remember? And he's like, I don't really know. Like, all the basketball, all the football. And there isn't like something that just like totally sticks out. He'll be like, well, maybe our championships. Well, we won a few of them. So it's like, well, which one, which game? But if you ask them in the house about any one of the sets of antlers that are in there that are theirs, about any hunt they've been on, even the doe hunts there's no antlers in the house, even a doe hunt as a 10-year-old, if you ask every one of my kids, my daughters, my boy, all of them about their sports, they won't really remember a lot of specifics. But like the specifics you just told me about your bow hunt as a 13-year-old, like, and that's how my kids are with their hunts. They remember, there's something about the experience of hunting. Every time you go, you'll remember almost every detail.
Yeah.
There is something there.
I mean, listen, you don't have to exclude anything. I can't even remember like all of the details from the Super Bowl. Right?
Yeah.
I can't remember those details. I can remember like certain plays. But it's funny because I'll like recall that play and then I'll go watch the film and I'll be like, oh, I thought it happened way different. Like in my head, it happened way different than that.
Yeah.
But you're right. When it comes to like a hunt and like even a non-successful hunt, I can remember almost every detail of that hunt because the journey that goes on like during a hunt, like the journey of it and the process of it, especially whenever it's like taxing, right? Like if it's mentally, physically taxing hunt, you remember every single detail from those hunts, and you can recall it from like you said. I just recalled one from 13. I can't go back to like a middle school football game and recall anything. And I don't remember any of the football games from 7th and 8th grade. Like it just don't stick out.
It was all an experience. It was great. It's a great experience. I don't want to make that sound like that it's not. But my point to this to parents with young kids is, you know, at that age from 7 to say high school, the one thing that I would probably do a little bit differently is I'd probably have actually missed a few more games or practices and taken them. Like we kind of were beholden a lot with our kids to sports. Yeah. AAU basketball, football. Hey, you got to be a good teammate. You got to be there. You committed to the team. You're a goddamn 8-year-old. Like you're on Little League baseball.
It doesn't matter.
And I understand the theory of that. Like, yeah, would I let my kid skip just because he doesn't feel like going to practice? Like 1,000% no. No. Like even if you're sick, like how sick are you?
But for an experience, for a life experience,
yes. Like that's where I should have even done more. Where it's like, hey man, I know I'm the coach of the team, and I know you're the quarterback. But, like, hey, parents, I'm going to get a fill-in parent, and the backup quarterback's going to get a little bit of time. But, like, this one weekend in September, we're going to go elk hunt.
Yeah.
Like, sorry. It's 6th grade or 5th grade football.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Right.
And you know, so that's the part of it, like, when we'll get to your cat hunt. But, like, I've heard you tell your cat hunt. So, you know, you told it on Rogan. Heard you tell it around here a little bit. You know, your elk hunt and some of these different things, like, you remember every detail.
Everything.
And my kids, like, if you ask them about their deer, they'll even remember, like, where we parked the camper on that trip. Where did we park the camper on this trip? Like, where we parked the truck, how far we walked, you know, like, every detail. It's pretty wild how there is something crazy about hunting in the outdoors that hits different.
Well, I always say it's because, you know, there's some spiritual about it. There's something that is, like, primal and it's like in your DNA, right? Joe Rogan and I were talking about this, how like your DNA is like it's almost like you know, like the old pictures, you know, Hank would know not anything about this, but the old pictures, how it came in like a strip of film. Yeah. Right. Your DNA is like that. Right. And it tells a story. Yes. So in my story somewhere there, like hunting is like, it's in there. Because that's why I think sports and hunting are related so closely, because why did people play sports to begin with? Yeah. They did it to get ready to go hunt.
I heard you say that
to go to war
with Joe, and that's I hadn't really thought of that. I mean, frankly, that's what the Olympics were really like. That's how it came about. Like all that athleticism, all those games were all designed around some kind of an activity that had to do with war or hunting.
They literally throwing
a javelin. Yeah. It's wild.
Sprinting and throwing a big ball, you know, and wrestling.
Yeah. Jumping over a creek.
Yeah. Jumping over things like, hey, can you jump over that creek? Yeah. And then some guys could and some guys couldn't. Yeah. And it's just like, it's turned into, that's why, you know, sports, I think sports and hunting are so relatable. Mm-hmm. Because hunting, like I always argue this on my radio show that like, you know, I'll start talking about hunting and they're like, oh, stick to sports. I'm like, hunting is a sport. Yeah. Like it is absolutely a sport. You have to train for it. Yep. You have to practice for it. Yep. You have to mentally, like you have mental blocks that you have to get through. There's
a ton of failure.
Oh, you deal with way more
same with sports.
Yep. Well, that's what I said. I said this as well on a couple podcasts. I don't know if I said it to Rogan or not, but I told him, I said, listen, think about how many pass plays I was in 10 years of playing in the NFL. I started almost every game. Think about how many pass plays I actually was in on.
How many times did you?
How many times was there a drop back pass? So then how many times did I hit the quarterback? Right now, how many times did I hit the quarterback where he actually had the football in his hands and it was a sack? 36 times. 36 in 10 years, 60 snaps a game.
That's a lot of 17
game seasons plus playoffs. I mean,
that's crazy.
It's a lot of failure.
Yeah.
And then you go into it's the same way with hunting.
Same way with baseball. I mean, a Hall of Famer hits the ball 3 out of 10 times.
Mm-hmm.
Like 3.5. At 3.5, you're the greatest in the game. 7 times out of 10 you fail, and you're the greatest at what you do.
And how do you respond to that failure? Right?
And with hunting, I would argue if you go out and you shoot something 3 out of 10 times, you're a Hall of Fame hunter.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people that hunt all season, several seasons in a row. I don't know how many days a year they spend in the field, but, if they're not hunting, a private ranch, if they're not stacking some of the odds, in their favor, and they're just straight up public land hunting, a lot of
they
failure.
might go a whole year without seeing an elk.
Yeah. So that mental fortitude to keep going in the sport or in hunting is much the same. You're exactly right.
And sorry, I'm like stumbling. I'm not excited to talk about it, but inside of that, right? So inside of that failure, what did you learn? Right. So I would set moves up for later in the pass rush game. So I would set a guy up like, okay, he thinks I'm just going to keep working the same move.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep doing the same thing. And then it's like, okay, now I know I could catch him when he's tired in the third, fourth quarter.
Yeah.
I'll catch him, like, especially like some of these offensive linemen, they're just good.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, I have to figure out a way to get by him. I can't go through him. I'm having a hard time getting around him, but I can set up an angle, create an angle. And then when he's least expecting it,
and when you
go
really
the other
need
way.
it. Yeah.
And when we really need it, it's third down and 8. I know it's a pass. I know I have the one-on-one. This is my opportunity.
Yeah.
So I have to take advantage of it. And it's the same way in hunting. You fail. But did you learn from it, or do you keep doing the same thing over and over? And it's like, oh, I don't know why it's not working. I don't know why I can't shoot an elk. I don't know why I can't get close on these mule deer. Like, it's because you keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. And that's called insanity.
You're going to go early and move that tree stand.
Yeah. I'm going to go move my tree stand because I'm doing the same shit over and over, and it's not working.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move my tree stand. I'm going to try a different approach. I'm going to think about, okay, maybe my wind swirled when I get down into this little valley. Maybe I need to get down here a little earlier, before my thermals start to rise and this and that. Like, there's all kinds of things that go into account there that you have to educate yourself on your losses.
Right.
And that's what a lot of people do wrong, and they just give up.
But very, very, very similar to professional sports. In football, so 38 sacks you said?
36.
36 sacks. There's probably a couple in there that you got hosed on, a couple half sacks.
Oh, there's a lot of them.
So 36 times. So the point of all that failure is, though, once you have the success, that feeling of that success, whether it's a sack or quite frankly, the ultimate feeling of success with that Super Bowl win, that accomplishment of a lifelong journey of failure and hard work, is so similar in elk, when you're elk hunting or in hunting in general. But if you're elk hunting and you're that guy that's put 5 years in on public land, busting your balls, trying to learn, trying to get better, and you finally put an arrow through an elk, that's your Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And that feeling, and I would wonder, actually, I think you said on Rogan that feeling was better than your Super Bowl.
Yeah, it was. I've traveled 60 miles on my feet in 4.5 days.
Really?
And I put the work in. And then the week before that, I was on an over-the-counter public land in Colorado. I was like 50 miles in 4 days.
Yeah.
And I never seen an elk.
Yeah.
So then I went to New Mexico, and it was like there was too many elk. It was great.
Yeah.
Like, it was like no matter where we went, we were getting blown out by satellites and spikes and cows. And so it was like we just kept hiking, and it paid off. And
when you were at full draw, did it feel like pressure moments in a game? Was it similar? Was it different?
It was similar, because in those pressure moments in a football game, I'm prepared. Like, everything slows down for me.
Really?
Like, it all slows down. Everything, I could see every little detail. Everything is like there, and everything's happening slower than what it looks like it's happening.
Really?
And that's how it is. When I go to full draw, everything just like, it's called a flow state.
Yeah.
Like, I just like zoom, laser focus on what's happening.
Yeah.
Like, I can't, all the outside noise is just outside noise. Like the crowd, you got 80,000 people screaming, yelling, and there's cameras, and there's,
right,
other players out there yelling and screaming. Everything's happening, but everything is just dead. It's like me and this one goal. And that's like, people think that's crazy, but you have to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Right. You have to be able to lock in. And I think a lot of people get nervous. They get all anxious and nervous because they're afraid to fail.
Right.
But once you I don't want to call it submit to it, but once you almost have to submit to failure. Like, okay, I'm gonna fail. Sometimes I'm gonna fail. If you archery hunt, you're gonna fail.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna think you have the perfect shot, and you release that arrow, and he heard the snap of it. It's not like a gun. That bullet, that arrow doesn't get there as fast as a bullet.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of slip between a cup and a lip.
Yeah.
Like a lot of things can happen. There could be a branch you didn't even see. Right. There could be the smallest twig that just throws your arrow off.
You look at the wrong pin.
Yeah, you looked at the wrong pin. I didn't realize my dial was at 50 and I'm shooting at 20. It's all these variables that go in. So to me, it's okay, check all the boxes.
Yeah.
All right, check all the boxes. Do everything right, because you could do everything right and still screw it up. Because that deer or that elk could jump the string.
Right.
He can just twitch a little bit, and it's just instead of hitting him in the vitals, I hit him in the liver or something. Now I gotta wait for 6 hours and hope he dies.
Right.
That's just I don't want to ever do that. I want to make an ethical shot that I know that I'm not going to have to hike too far to find this animal. And that's just always been my from a young age. I just was I want to make sure I don't want to see an animal suffer. Right.
Right.
And it was the same way on a football field. I don't want to almost get there.
Right.
Almost.
Right.
There's a difference between a quarterback hit and a sack.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I affected the pass and it was an incomplete pass, but it's not the same as when you sack a guy and then jump up and howl standing over him.
Yeah.
Right. And 80,000 people howl for you.
Yeah.
It's not the same as when you know you made a perfect shot. You know it.
Yeah.
I know it. The sound of it. And then you walk over there and you see your arrow.
Yeah.
Or you see the arrow as he's running away. You just know that it was a perfect shot. And then you hear the crashing of branches on the other side. And it's yep, that's what you want.
And that feeling with hunting, hunting is so singular from the standpoint that even when you win the Super Bowl, you had 51 other men on that team.
53.
Or 53.
Well, 52 other guys, yeah.
Right, 52. Me. Yeah, 53-man roster. You had all those other teammates on that roster. You had an offense where you're not even on the field, right? You've got, Peyton Manning, or you've got DeMarcus Ware, you've got whoever. And as much as you want to try to affect that game, all of a sudden the other team just hands the ball and they go the other direction.
Yeah.
It's well, damn, I was all geared up to make that play, and they just ran it the other way. They ran that way, shit. And, so with your feeling of success, I'm sure there's a ton of it individually, but also it's such a team success, such a brotherhood. But in archery hunting and hunting in general, outside of having a guy calling for you, it's so singular. It's just you and the animal, which is, I think that even heightens that sense of accomplishment and euphoria even more, that you bested that animal, and you really are a part of nature at that point. It's a predator and prey situation.
Yeah.
Yep. It's got to be a different kind of euphoria putting an arrow through an elk than winning a game.
Way different. Yeah. The most relatable thing would be I wrestled in high school, so it's just you out there.
Yeah. There's
no one else to blame. And it's the same thing. So if you lose, it's on you.
Right.
Right. It could have been you didn't practice enough. You weren't in good enough shape. You didn't work these moves enough. You didn't, drill enough on these different moves. You didn't watch film on this guy. It's okay, well, when you get out in the elk woods or you get out in any kind of woods and you release an arrow, if you make a bad shot, it's on you.
Yeah.
There's no one else to blame. You can't turn around and be why did you shoot that? Why did you do this? Why'd you do that? It's there's no one else to blame but you.
Right.
Once you release that arrow, everything's on you. It's your decision. You made the choice.
Yeah.
To release that arrow.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure that it is a perfect shot.
Yeah, and you think about from the team aspect too, and this would be so difficult as a teammate. You look in the Super Bowl this year and a holding call, right? Wasn't it a holding call in the end zone that gave them an extra play?
Yeah.
If you're a teammate and you've done everything, that game is won, and a guy gets a holding call or and puts them in field goal range and they knock it through, the being a teammate thing, that would be a learning experience where it would be really hard to be at that point where you've made it to the Super Bowl. It's your one shot, and to have a teammate make a mistake like that costs you the game. Yeah. Now, granted, we know there was 100 other plays in that game,
But most games are decided by 1 or 2 plays.
1 or 2 plays. And it could have been definitely that game, that play in the first quarter, but nobody's going to remember
Nobody
that
remembers
play.
that. They just remember the mistake.
Yeah. So how, from a failure standpoint, and this is actually something for Hank and, for my other kids that I, if there's one thing that I see Hank struggle with a little bit at times is when the game isn't going well, right? Because a kid like him, and I'm sure a kid like you when you were in sports, is pretty used to dominating pretty well, is used to affecting the game, getting things to go the right way. But especially a game like basketball where for some reason that ball's not going through the hoop, right? In football, there's definitely more ability to manhandle the game and control it from like a D-line position. But when
you can have a bad and on the D-line, you can have a bad play and nobody will really know until you go to turn on a film and watch a film with your coach.
Right.
But in basketball, you miss a 3-point, right?
And then you miss 5 of them.
And then you miss 5 of them, and it's like, well, he's having a bad night,
Yeah.
It's like, what's going on with him? Then you start questioning yourself. But that's where I think I have a feeling about like what kind of advice would you give somebody there?
Yeah, young kid dealing with failure.
Oh, you have to accept that you accept it, and then you move on from it. You don't let that define you. Accept that happened. You had a bad day. Okay, so what do I got to do to make sure I don't have any more bad days?
Well, and even it's the bad play, because a lot of times I tell him, you see guys that'll say be cold in the first half, right, and not 0 for 6 from the field and just sucking and 3 turnovers, right? And I always try to tell them, you could also be 0 for 6 and 3 more turnovers in the second half, or you can turn around. Maybe you're not shooting as much in the second half, but you can have a great game rebounding, defense, whatever, and you still end up affecting the game and winning. Or you can let that first half ruin the second one.
Right.
And
you have to have a short memory.
Yeah. Do you have certain ways that you put plays behind you in the game in the real time? Do you have things that you said to yourself? Like, how do you deal with that failure play by play?
I think it's almost like a compartmentalizing thing, right? You have to compartmentalize that play. Like, it happened, and I'm disassociating with it. Like, I am going to move past it. Like, you cannot let it affect you. Like, there's not time. There's not time for you to have a bad play and then let that affect the next 3 snaps. So I had a bad play on first down. Next thing I know, it's third down, and I'm still thinking about that play on first down.
Yeah.
Like, you can't have that, because you have to move on to the next snap.
Yeah.
Next snap. Like, always a next snap mentality, next play mentality. Even when you have success, you have to have that. When you do have success, it's like, okay, next play.
Yeah.
And I actually struggle with this in hunting. Is I'll get a kill, and then I'm like already thinking about like next. Okay, let's get to the next hunt. Like, let's do it again. Like, I have a hard time relishing in the moment, enjoying the moment, of success.
That probably comes from your playing career, though, from the standpoint that the win last Sunday don't mean shit this Sunday. So you kind of had to put aside what you just did and look to the next. I mean, you basically had a career of looking a week ahead, no matter what happened last week.
Yeah, it's what have you done for me lately?
Yeah,
nobody cares about last week.
Yeah, you literally your livelihood depended on it.
Well, think about it. Like, guys at the beginning of the season, guys will have teams will have great 4 games. I've been a part of teams after we won the Super Bowl. We went 4-0, and then lost the rest of the season. Didn't win a single game, maybe one game throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah.
And it's like, nobody cares because we were really good for 4 games, but nobody cares.
Right.
It's the end. People want to see, nobody cares how you got there, what it took to get there. They only care about the end result. Who won? Who won the Super Bowl? Who got the elk? Who got the mule deer? Nobody cares about the journey, right? Nobody cares about what you had to go through to get there, and then you failed, right? Nobody cares.
Right.
Did you succeed? Were you successful?
Right.
Right.
We saw that last weekend with the state championship basketball games that we were at, and all the preparation that went that entire season. And I watched 2 teams play. I hadn't watched all season. I didn't know what they won, what they did. I don't know how much they practiced, whatever. All you watched was that one game.
Yep.
Just the results of that entire season, And I actually try to figure out how, and I'm not good maybe at articulating it to my kids, of like, how do you have this attitude of not caring, but also care deeply, right? So you care about your performance, you care about your teammates, you care about everything that happens. But also, when you do make a mistake on the court or on the field and you turn it over or you fumble it or miss a tackle, how do you have that attitude of next play and almost as if you don't care? We know you care, but if you care too much, now you're dwelling on it.
Right.
Right. And
well, there's a fine line between caring too much and not caring enough.
Yeah.
Because, and you see it in people's body language.
Yeah.
You'll see it where they're like, they care so much that they're like pressing and they're trying really hard to go make up for it. Yeah. And then they end up screwing up again. And then it's like compounding interest now that they just keep screwing up and keep making it worse because they're just like trying so hard to like make up for it instead of just like resorting back to your training.
Yeah.
Right. Resort to your training. Like that's why practice like you play.
Yeah.
Always practice like you play because you will always resort back to that.
Yeah.
The way you practiced when you were tired and when things weren't going right in practice and it was hot and miserable. Like how did you respond then?
Right.
And then there's the flip side to that is the guys that just completely tank and give up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we have a lot of that going on right now where guys just give up. I see it in the NBA all the time. Now that I do sports radio, I see it where guys will just leave the game.
Yes.
Like, what are you doing?
I had a dude walk off the other night.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and that not caring too is about what people think in the stands, right? Like I watched you a lot. We watched a lot of Broncos games over the years, and I'll say I don't remember a single play of yours, right? As far as, and I wasn't like an Uber fan, like I got Derek Wolfe posters on my wall, and I'm like, but from the standpoint of I've watched a ton of football of a ton of different guys, right? I've watched a ton of Tom Brady or Peyton Manning or whoever, and generally what I always try to tell, and I've tried to tell my kids this is, after the game, you're going to think like, oh, everybody in that stadium just saw me like fumble it or throw an interception or whatever. Like everybody's going to hate me or, they're going to think I'm stupid or how could you make that play? And ultimately, it's like the sooner you can get a kid to understand that nobody's going to remember, like nobody's going to care. So if you can put that past you right in that moment and realize like, next week nobody will remember this, it helps you move on to that next play. Because what I remember,
Lou Holtz told me this one time.
Yeah,
you know who Lou Holtz is, right?
Oh yeah.
So Lou Holtz told me,
the old Notre Dame coach.
Yeah, and he's from my hometown. So he told me I got inducted to his Hall of Fame, and he was having a conversation with me before we went up there and gave our speech. And he was like, let me tell you something. He said, 90% of people want you to fail. The other 10% don't give a shit.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, he's right. Like, so the only people that matter in that moment are your teammates. Don't let them down. If you do it for them, it's a whole different story. It's a whole different story. All that matters is the respect to your teammates. Nobody cares about what the fans think.
Right.
Who cares? Don't worry about what your classmates think and you may had a bad play, whatever. Move on from it. And don't let it define you.
If your teammates see how you work in the gym Monday through Saturday, they see how you work in the gym and you make a mistake on a Sunday, they're not going to question your dedication. Like, shit happens.
Right.
People make mistakes.
Well, look at Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
The worst season he's ever had. But you don't see anybody on that team not supporting him.
Right.
Because he puts the work in.
Yeah.
And sometimes things don't go right. That's just the way it goes. Sometimes you just have a bad season.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have a bad game, but don't let it compound.
How is it for you watching currently? Like you say, you're on a sports radio show in Denver. Is that right? What is it like being, just having come off the field and now being on the other side of it?
The hardest part about it is criticizing guys that I was like teammates with.
Yeah.
Being critical.
Being part of the media.
Yeah. Because the way I try not to be disrespectful. I just try to be critical of the actual play. Right. But some guys make it difficult. Like, with the weird stuff that Russ does and the weird stuff that other players do, that like, it's hard to not be critical of that, but I try to keep it so it's not personal. Right. It's all about the play and what I'm seeing as far as how the play goes and using my experiences on all these different teams of, how I perceive things. And it's just my opinion,
Yeah.
So, but the hardest part, the thing I miss most about football is the violence. Like I miss being violent, like going out there and being violent. That's what I loved about the game from the second I stepped on the field at 7 years old. I just got to be violent with people. I got to hit people. I got to
take all the aggression,
take all that anger and aggression and rage and channel it into something that was good. And to not have that, like, to me, the best, you know, that's why I when I train in the gym, I like torture myself in there.
Yeah.
Like, I have to exhaust myself because that is my church.
Right.
That is where I go to find peace.
Right.
I find peace in struggle and in those adversity. Right.
It's amazing that adversity and that struggle. It's amazing how many professional athletes, when you look back on their childhoods, have similar stories to you. You know, I know you talked on the Rogan show, and I highly encourage people. Joe's a decent podcaster. He could learn a few things from me, but you know, it's all right. But no, I suggest, I mean, that was just a couple weeks ago, to go back and find that podcast, because you get deep into your childhood about not knowing your dad and the struggles with abuse. Did all that stuff, do you think that's the reason you ended up so successful in being in the NFL? If you'd have had the Leave It to Beaver family, you know, I tell my kids all the time, like, your life's so comfortable. There's a kid somewhere in the inner city that has one option. Well, they have two options. Make it to the pros or go to prison or die. You know,
well, that's that's what I said on Rogan. I said it was either football or prison. I mean, it's like, I'm either going to be a terrible human criminal or a football player.
Yeah.
And I don't know if maybe I boxed myself into that, thinking that way, but that's the way I looked at it. It was like, it's this or nothing. If I don't have this, I have nothing.
And you got to remember that you're having these thoughts when you're a kid, you know, and I say a kid, like up until like 18 years old, obviously you could have looked at life differently during that time frame had you have a more fully functioning, you know, brain. But like when you're a kid, all you're looking at is what's the options, what your life currently is, and what's in front of you. And
you're
I
in
know
survival mode.
Survival mode.
Like, from the earliest age, all I can remember is just trying to survive day in, day out. Yeah. Like, just try to get through this day.
Was the gym a place you could go when you were a kid and just...
No, there was no gym.
Really?
I just played backyard football.
Really?
I just ran around the neighborhoods. I went to 7 different elementary schools, man. I was all over the place.
Yeah.
It's like, didn't have a lot of friends because I was usually the running back and the middle linebacker. And that's usually the best athlete and the most popular kid. And I was coming for a spot every school I went to. So there was usually going to be a fight, and I wasn't going to back down from that. So there was going to be a fight, and then there was going to be, you know, his buddies aren't going to like me, and I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm here to play football. I don't care about any of that stuff. I don't care to be friends with you.
In high school, did you end up, like, with your 4 years of high school in the same spot? Or
yeah,
did you
I stayed
move?
in high. Yeah, so I moved to where I went to high school. I moved there in 8th grade.
Okay.
7th grade, halfway through 7th grade.
Did you have some coaches affect you in a positive way?
Yeah, I had a good high school coach. He was a good dude. He looked, you know, did the right thing, and kind of guided me in the right direction, and, you know, got me out of trouble, stuff like that.
Were you a shithead?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Absolute animal.
When did you grow? I mean, when did you?
It wasn't until I really didn't really start to grow until I got married and I met my wife, and that, like, I was already kind of like on that path of like trying to, like, I made a decision that, like, I need to find the right person.
Yeah.
The right life partner, you know, and my wife was that, like,
that's when you kind of grew up.
She grounded me, you know, like, was like, hey, like, get your head out of the clouds, dude. Like, you can't act like that.
Yeah.
You know, because I was acting like a savage.
Yeah.
Because to me, I played a savage sport in a savage position, and I had to be a savage at all times.
Well, and you're being rewarded financially for it. Like, everything that's happening, you know, you got a lot of fans, everybody's loving you. Like, everything that's, all of the inputs that you're getting is that that's the right way to go about it. And, you know, there is that edge that I've met several NFL guys that are like some of the nicest dudes. And then, you know, I've heard you say it, is Ndamukong Suh.
Yeah.
He's like the nicest guy, but man, on the field, he's a freaking savage. And he's done some shit on the field that it's like, it's not real. That's got a dirty.
Well, you have to go to a different place. I talked about it on Rogan about, like, what my mentality was going into a football game.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, I didn't care.
Was that a process of a couple hours of, like, almost ramping hatred up inside?
I could do it so fast. I could flip that switch on so fast because, you know, I talked about how, like, sometimes at the end of the day, I'm exhausted mentally because I'm, like, battling these the depression, the anxiety, the
Yeah.
rage, like keeping that under control. And then when I'm allowed, when it's like, hey, you can turn it on now, it is like ready to go. Like cannot wait to get out. You know, it's like this dark, it's like this warrior that wants to come out and play, you know?
Right.
And it brings out like this crazy savage like mindset that.
So did having kids was that like the moment where you softened you up a bit, or
having kids made it complicated because I had to go from like, I'd play in a football game and then just in like 2 hours later, I'm at home
playing peekaboo.
Yeah. doing story time, reading, you know, Llama Llama, Red Pajama, you know, and like
you're literally still
Peppa
sweating.
Pig. And I'm still like crazy adrenaline dumping, you know, like I'm still feeling this weird, you know, like I haven't clicked it all the way off, you know? And then, the next day after that, then you have like this crazy, like sense of like exhaustion.
Yeah.
Right. And then you're like and then you're just like not available emotionally for your family. And it's like, you know, I had really struggled with that. But I figured it out. Yeah. And when I did figure it out, it was time to be done. Yeah. Like it's time to be done. It's to me, I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish in the game. I wanted to play 10 years and I wanted to make a certain amount of money. I wanted to win a Super Bowl. I did all that. So what I set out to accomplish, I did. And I didn't get to go out the exact way I wanted to, but I still went out on my terms, which is most important. Because a lot of guys, they end up getting kind of just, nobody signed you. You know, you're just going to have to call it.
Didn't you come back and re-sign with the Broncos?
For one day, to retire as a Bronco.
Yeah, yeah. Because you spent, 9 years there?
8 years, yeah.
How long were you in Baltimore?
2 years.
2, okay. How was I don't remember how the team was in Baltimore, because that was Lamar.
It was COVID.
Oh.
Yeah, Lamar was there. But in 2020, I think we had the reason I wanted to go there was I was thinking about just calling it after year 8. But I was like, I kind of want to go to see if I can get on that team in Baltimore because they're pretty good.
They were good.
I thought they had a shot to win a Super Bowl. And we did have a Super Bowl team. We had a Super Bowl caliber team. And then COVID just kind of wrecked that for us. And then the year after that, you know, I had a really good season in 2020. Actually, I was the number 1 run stopper again. You know, for almost a whole decade, I was the best run stopper in the league, percentage-wise. Like, if they ran a ball at me, it wasn't getting by me. Yeah. And then in 2021, I tore both labrums off the hip bone on both sides. And I was in a lot of pain. I was just dragging my feet around, dragging my right leg around and having this crazy numbing issues going down my legs and weird nerve pain. And my low back was like in so much pain. It was hurting bad. I have degenerative discs in there. Yeah. So it was like my body was telling me like, dude, it's time to call it. Yeah. So I did. I called it, and it was really one of the best decisions I've ever made because it was. Yeah. I was going to do some serious damage if I kept going. Yeah.
Yeah, especially in that position. Your job is impact.
It's all impact.
You know, I mean, it is incredible what Brady was able to do. Really incredible as long as he was able to do it. But quite frankly, when shit got tough, he could also just fall down and avoid it, toss the ball away, whatever he needed to do. I mean, rarely took. It's one of the things he was most amazing with, that he could not take hits and still keep his eyes downfield. Yeah, was pretty incredible. And have that wherewithal to know when to do what. But in the D line or a linebacker or whatever, like
you're getting hit every play.
Every play,
you're hitting somebody every single play. Yeah, with your head. You know? Yeah, 2 offensive linemen coming at you every play. You know, it's double team after double team after double team. And then
it always amazes me, you know, with the rules with like the running backs, you know, not being able to lower their head, and there's things that they're not supposed to do, right? And then you watch the interior, and every play, both guys are like,
pow, like two heads. You know, like 2 bighorns just going at it.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Unbelievable. You really came into the game when, you know, back when I was a kid, like in the 90s, you know, the Cowboys and whatnot, it was giant offensive linemen, just giant fat guys, right? I mean, it was like the time when it was just like, how big can we be? But then the Broncos really changed the game a lot in the as Elway was kind of towards the end there with Terrell Davis and whatnot, they started going with the smaller offensive line and speed.
Well, yeah, because instead of that power
lineman
game, it was side to side.
Yeah, pulling guards and running, and just these linemen, and they just ran. And you really came into a game that was really built around speed as much as it was power. I mean, both, obviously, but, dude, if you were too just fat and slow, you weren't going to be on the field compared to, the old days.
Yeah. Well, we played against 2019, the first game of the season, played the Raiders in Oakland on the baseball field. Yeah. So it's a baseball field.
That always looked like it would be
it was miserable.
Miserable.
And the right guard was 6'6", 405 pounds. The right tackle was 6'9", 420 pounds.
Jeez.
60 snaps in that game. 53 of them were double teams.
Yeah.
Long day.
Long day.
Long day.
Yeah.
And it was a war. Like, we would end up in a pile, and one of them would elbow drop me, and like it was.
How dirty are those piles?
Oh, it depends on. Here's the way I was. If you're going to be on that bullshit, I'm going to be on that bullshit. So, you want to be on that extra stuff? All right, we could be on that extra stuff. You want to? I would grab people by their throat until my fingers touched.
Yeah.
Squeeze their throat until I could feel my fingers touching.
Yeah, it does seem like it would be smart if you're an offensive lineman or D-line to kind of have a little chat with the guy in the beginning and be like, we're going to go to war here, but, like, let's not do that shit.
Well, we wouldn't. It's not even that. It's a respect thing, right? It's like this is how I feed my family.
Right.
Are you going to try to be dirty and try to hurt me, or are you going to play the game within the rules and just play hard? Like, I appreciate good competition and playing hard.
Right.
But are you going to try to shove me over
from the side?
Yeah. Are you going to try to take my knees out? You're going to try to push me over a pile at the end of a play whenever the play's dead and there's no need for it.
Yeah.
But if we want to do that, we can play that game.
And I remember that was kind of the discussion with all the concussion stuff that came along. As guys were saying, I would rather a dude take a shot at my head than at my knees.
Yeah.
Like, Adrian Peterson blows out a knee and he's out for a year, right? Like, or whoever, get a concussion, may or may not be out for a game or a day. You were talking about concussions last night. It was an interesting conversation from the standpoint of just how many impacts, and the fact that, like, most concussions go
undiagnosed.
Undiagnosed.
You don't even know.
Yeah.
But until the next day when you're, like, nauseous and, you're sleepy and you can't really get it going.
Yeah.
Foggy. Like that, and then it's like, well, there's a fear of losing your job because there's every year there's a draft. Every year there's thousands of kids ready to try to take your spot.
Right.
And every year you get a little bit older.
Right.
And every year you get a little bit more expensive. Right. And every year there's another guy that's cheaper, younger, and more willing to, just play banged up and hurt.
Yeah.
So your days are numbered. From the day you get drafted, they're trying to replace you.
Right.
So
would you, especially when you hit that 2-3 year mark and you start getting expensive, then you really better be on it.
Yep.
Would you go, knowing what you know now with concussions and injuries and everything, would you do it all again?
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you let your son?
Nah.
No.
I wouldn't let him play contact football until he got to high school.
Really?
I would have waited till high school to let him go.
If he loved it, if he was really into football, would you push him and let him get after it at that point?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
He has to love it, though. It's too hard if you don't love it.
Yeah.
It's too hard. I know, and it's a full-time job. You don't want to push somebody. You would be so surprised how many guys in the NFL hate football.
Yeah.
It's just a job because they hate it. And it does towards the end of the game. Like, there's very few guys you're going to find that really love the game still.
Right.
Like, you just start to hate it because it's a grimy, dirty business.
Right.
And they treat you like a commodity. So you don't feel like, people just see the big overpaid checks, that we're getting paid so much. But in perspective for what you're giving up, you're probably giving up years of your life.
Right.
So is that worth it?
Well, and that's just the few of you that actually got wealthy doing it. Because the few of you that got wealthy doing it is pales in comparison to the number of people who did almost as much as you did and didn't get really a dime, frankly.
Yeah.
Dante Olson, super nice guy, our insurance guy. You'll meet him tonight. Really nice guy, but he was in the league for maybe 2 years, I think, a year or two. I'm not really totally sure, but like, you know, went through a ton of that pain and that everything that you went through up to that point, and then still didn't make it. Mm-hmm. Never got wealthy, you know, so didn't have the payoff as far as financially. Yeah, that'd be it's an interesting thing for me, like as a parent, having a kid who's potentially going to be a giant, loves to play the game, is good at the game, at least at this age, of like, do you push? Do you encourage? You know, I told him early on, because it's part of why I coached his team, because I was worried about the way he was going to be coached. You know, we had a couple guys that were like, just stick your head in there and hit him, you know, like get your head in there. And it was big for me. There was a really cool program that the league put on that was taught by the Seahawks coaches, and it was this heads up, you know, way to tackle, blah, blah, blah. And it, you know, the way they explained it and coached it, I thought was really good. And my big thing was the health of the kids. But I told him, if you're going to play, you're going to work out more than everybody else, and you're going to go harder than everybody else, because then you're probably not, like, shit happens, but you're probably not the kid getting hurt.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
And yes, he's gifted with genetics to be the biggest kid on the field, but there's a lot of big boys out there that aren't doing much.
Oh, yeah.
And
a lot
they're
of
getting
them
hurt, and they're getting buckled and hit from the side, and
they're playing scared,
not protecting themselves.
That's the other thing. You can't play scared out there.
Yeah.
You play scared, you play like trying not to get hurt, you're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
Like you have to play full speed at all times. Like every time something has happened to me, it's usually because like somebody's not going hard, or like the play is like kind of coming to an end and everybody's slowing down. And that's when things happen.
Yeah.
Because you got, you know, if everybody, it's like controlled chaos. If everybody's going as hard as they can, it's usually pretty good, you know. And like my left elbow got dislocated on half the offensive line takes off. So I play the play out, and then my nose guard is like kind of jogging over and like sees me last second getting off the ground, and he runs right into my left elbow, and it dislocated it completely all the way to the ground, you know. And it was like, dude, you just ruined my season, and like just because you're not paying attention.
Weren't you saying on Rogan that was like in your contract year?
Contract year, yeah.
Yeah.
Cost me probably $10 million.
Damn. $10 million elbow. So what your Super Bowl ring sitting here on the table, when you see that Super Bowl ring, what do you see?
I just think about everything it took to get there and how special it was. Because like I said, I was on 10 other teams in the NFL.
What year in the league?
That was my 4th season.
Yeah.
So almost halfway. And then it was like we almost got there we got there once during that run and lost.
Yeah. So
to be able to get to 2, and then for 4 years straight, we were from 2012 to 2016, we were the team to beat. And we would get to the playoffs, be the number 1 seed, and lose. And it was like, you know, the most unlikely team to win the Super Bowl was that team.
Yeah. And
we did it. And that's what I think about. I think about everything it took to get there, and how, like, I'm so proud of it, you know, because it's like.
But from 13 to 33, like, or at that point, what were you, 29 or so?
I was 26.
26. Yeah, so 13 years of struggle just in that piece of metal.
Yeah.
You know, it's wild.
It's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that's why, so I was getting ready to do an investment here recently. It was for $1 million. And I was like, you know, the argument with I wanted preferred distributions. Mm-hmm. And the guys were like, well, you know, we have all the sweat equity here, this and that. And I said, do you know how difficult it was for me to make $2 million to get that $1 million? Because guess what?
Right.
Uncle Sam's taking 48%.
Yep.
So 48 cents on the dollar I'm paying to Uncle Sam. So I got to double that. I got to make $2 million to pay you $1 million. I said, you think that didn't take a lot of sweat? I said, don't tell me about sweat equity. You know, and then he was like, well, I guess you're right. You know, like I brought it into perspective for him. I know you're working right now, but you got to understand how hard it was to earn this money. It wasn't given to me. I had to earn it, every cent, the hard way. And you're not like, I'm not going to just hand it to you without some assurances. Long story short, I didn't do the deal because I am selective with where I put my money and what I do with it. You know, I had those experiences of buying dumb shit that has no value.
Right.
It's not an appreciating asset, you know, buying cars and stuff like that. Like I was lucky enough. Actually, funny thing is, not that I'm not gonna. It's a small flex, but it was because of COVID. But I bought 2 Lamborghinis during COVID and made money both times on them.
Oh, really?
Like made a shit ton of money on them both times because I had a buddy that's in the car game and he was like, "Hey, bud, you should probably buy one of these." He's like, "It's going to be worth more." And my wife was like, "You're an idiot, you know?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm telling you, I put 2,000 miles on it and sold it for 75,000 more than I paid for it."
That's awesome.
And then during that process, I had another one being built, made $100,000 on that one. And I never touched it.
Yeah.
Didn't even drive it. I just sold it right away.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, okay, cool. We made $175,000 right there, just on some cars. But that's like usually cars, as soon as you pull it off the lot, it's, especially in those exotics, they just decrease in value right away. But it was something I always thought, like, you know what, man, I want to have a Lamborghini. I'm going to do it.
Right.
And I did it, and it was unfulfilling.
Yeah.
And that stays true for money. I always thought when I get money, I'm going to be happy.
Right.
I'm going to finally be happy. It doesn't, if anything, it complicates your life.
Yeah.
Even more, makes things more difficult.
Yeah.
Makes it hard to even like have a friend because you don't know what they want.
Right.
Like, why are you friends with me? Why?
Right.
Everybody's your buddy when you got money.
Right.
And you're paying for everything. But when you start asking people to pitch in, they start looking at you funny.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I guess you weren't really my friend then, huh?
Yeah. That's, and we were talking about this last night. You and I were about, that's my big thing with Rogan, for example. People will say, I see, Rogan's wearing your hat or this or that. Are you going to be on Rogan? And it's like, I don't actually want Rogan to think that I just want to be on Rogan. Like, I think he seems like a super cool dude. And a lot of my friends that are friends with him adore him. Yeah. Like, I think he'd be a cool friend. Yeah. Because seems like a really cool guy. It's, so I actually hesitate a bit because like I don't want to reach out too much or make it seem like I'm just one of those guys just trying to get something or trying to get on the show or I would trade right now. I'd sign something that said I'd rather be Rogan's friend than be on a show. Like you got one or the other. You can be on a show, help your business, or you can be his friend. Right. I'll take the friendship.
Yeah, every time.
Yeah, it's the thing talking about money and taxes. I had that discussion the other day with my accountant. We're going to pay more in taxes. I'm going to write a check for our company for more in taxes than I've made in 10 years personally, or more, 15 years probably. And it's amazing. And I told my accountant, and I told a guy that's on our board of directors that's done quite well. I hear always this narrative of, the rich aren't paying their fair share, and the rich aren't paying this, and the rich aren't paying that. And I asked him, I'm like, hey, bud, you're part of the rich. When you going to tell me how the rich aren't paying? And he's like, yeah, that's all bullshit. Yeah. He's like, the rich are paying a shit ton. Yeah. And it's like all that work and all that effort that you put in, like you say, if it's $20 million or whatever, well, imagine if you could have had 40. And not that we shouldn't pay any taxes.
Imagine if instead of 20, I could have 30.
It's unbelievable.
And like then they squander it. They squander it.
And that's the inferior part. Like the hardest part for me, and this is where I wish I could scream to everybody in the country. I'm that small business, like that tax break that they would pass, like the tax break for the corporations. If I could pay half of what we're about to pay, I could buy 2 more CNC machines and hire 3 more people to run them. And I would do it tomorrow. Because like we're trying to grow our business. Yeah. The amount, the kick in the ass that bill is of our growth is staggering. Like it's staggering. Where, I mean, we're going to keep growing. We're going to be fine. But it's going to be way slower. Like we could almost double our business overnight if we could just take all that money and just put it back in the company. Mm-hmm.
It's disgusting.
And then you turn around and you see what they're doing with it. Our elementary school here locally, the roof's falling in, the pipes are leaking, it's freaking insulated with asbestos, the whole 9 yards. But we're sending how much to Ukraine? You want
to talk about pissing me off?
Or not.
That pisses me off.
Oh, trying to pick a fight with Putin or China or, but we can't take care of Palestine, Ohio, or, or Palestine or whatever.
East Palestine.
East Palestine. That's where you grew up, right? No, that's where I get infuriated, because I'm like, you know what? How about let's sign a deal right now that I can't put another dollar in my personal bank account. I'll sign that. I'm not going to take a dollar of that, but I get to put all that money back into my business to grow, to hire more people, to give more pay raises, buy more equipment, donate more to the Veterans Fund, donate more to the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. Like, I guarantee I could do a lot better job spending that money for the government.
I know I could. Well, think about this, right? So when I got drafted, I didn't even have a bank account. I had $7. That's all I had, $7 in cash. I remember sitting there on that night that I got drafted. I had $7 in my wallet, and I was like, "Wow."
What round? What pick?
Second round, 36 pick.
Okay, so what was that going to mean to you financially?
So my signing bonus was like $2 million.
Wow.
So I went from $7 to $2 million, and then when I saw the check was only for like 1.1 million, I was like,
"That's not what we talked about."
I was like, "I'm super grateful, but what the hell is this?"
Yeah, what I was planning on spending that money, and all of a sudden that
they just take it. They don't even let you. You don't even get the right to check. They just take it.
Yeah,
just take it right out. And then every state that you play in, you got to pay that state's tax. And then you got to pay your agent. And then you know, there's all these things. And boo-hoo, whatever. You know, I get to play a game and make millions of dollars doing it, but still, it doesn't make it right.
And that's the thing. Listen to this NFL football player sitting here bitching about money, and it's like,
because we're talking about they only say that because of the amount of money that we're talking about. But it doesn't matter. What if we were talking about $50?
Right.
If I'm like, hey, they paid me $50, but I only got 20 of it because they took it out in taxes. And it's like, whoa, that makes it seem a lot different. But they see it as like millions of dollars, and it's like, or hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars. But it's like, at the end of the day, it's half.
Yeah.
Cut it in half, and that's bullshit.
Who was the black dude that ran for president that was proposing the flat tax for, like, across the board?
Yeah, the federal tax should be just...
And I remember, so I was just a broke-ass... I think back then, I was... I think that guy died, too. I was just a full-time knife maker. Paycheck to paycheck. I was I was doing okay as far as I could pay my bills, but that was it. Like, no extra. And I remember thinking back then, that's how it should be. It should be a flat, whatever you figure out the percentage is. If you make 20 grand in a year, you're going to pay $600 or $1,000 or $1,200, whatever that number is, that percentage. You make $2 million, it's going to be that percentage. To me, like, you want fair, you want equity. That's how it should be. And, because they were talking about getting rid of the IRS and all the deductions and all the horse shit, and how many lawyers does it take to save you money? And I don't know, we got a couple lawyers and we're still not figuring it out.
Oh, it's unreal. Like, the CPAs, I shouldn't have to hire somebody. People have to go and get a 4-year degree just to learn how to do your taxes.
Yeah.
Like, think about that, just to do taxes. It's just like, I don't know. I think it feels like extortion. It feels like, I feel like I'm taken advantage of, like my hard work is punished.
And it would be one thing if our bridges, our road systems, our military, our schools.
Yeah, and you went down to the cities and there wasn't any homeless people.
If I could walk downtown Chicago and LA and go to a show with my wife and walk home. Like when my ex and I went to Abu Dhabi, Dubai, flew into Dubai, then drove to Abu Dhabi. I built a sword for one of the sheikhs over there, and he flew us to Abu Dhabi to deliver it. Well, we flew into Dubai, but we drove to Abu Dhabi, and we spent a week in Abu Dhabi, and it was amazing. Have you been there?
No, but I hear it's unreal.
It was unreal. It was safe. The bridges, the roads, it was clean. It was absolutely incredible. We went out to bars at night and walked around, walked downtown, and this was in the height of the Iraq War. And we're in a Muslim country, even though, you could argue Dubai and Abu Dhabi are, it's about as Americanized as it can get. But still, you're in a foreign country in the Middle East, 50 miles from Iran, and I felt safer than any American city I was doing knife shows in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's something wrong with that.
Yeah,
I'm literally 500 miles from a full-on war zone and 50 miles from Iran.
Well, why are we not investing that money back into our country?
Right.
Like into the people that live here and the citizens here, the people that fought in these, crazy wars that you've got us into.
Yeah.
You know, what about those guys?
We can't even take care of the VA system.
No, it's pitiful.
Yeah.
You know, like going to the airport. Look how terrible the airport is. Look how terrible our prison system is. Look how the attack on police officers. You know, the fact that, like, you know, now you can just go rob a store, and if it's not over a certain amount, they just don't even care.
Yeah.
I mean, that is like, you're just promoting lawlessness.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. I just really think that they're trying to dumb us down as a society so they can control us more. And eventually it's going to be, you know, come and take it.
I really wish, you know, it's commendable what like Elon Musk has done with Twitter of exposing. I mean, he bought something and then exposed a bunch of shit that if he'd have hidden would have probably been a better financial decision for himself. Like, he just tanked the price of his own company by exposing all this bullshit. But I wish a guy like a Musk or Bezos or somebody would make a stand and say, I'm not paying taxes this year until you, the government, show me a budget and show me from last year where every dollar went. Like the defense budget, like, you know, and I love our military. I'm all about our military. In fact, I wish we'd build our military. I wish we'd keep them home some more and build them up into this beast that if we unleash it, it's going to be ugly. Like, we're going to go have war games for 48 hours and it's going to be annihilated when we come home. And we're not going to lose anybody. So don't screw with us. You know, that's my personal, it's a simple way of looking at the world, but, like, you know, our military's Derek Wolfe. Do you really want to pick on this guy?
Right.
Like, we don't want to unleash him.
Well, I think that's what, you know, a guy like Trump, that's kind of what he was doing, was trying to build the military back. And, you know, think about all of the equipment we left over there.
Yeah.
The billions of dollars.
Trillions
of dollars in equipment that we just left.
Lit on fire, burned,
destroyed
bombed.
it.
I know guys that were a part of that blew up all this shit that we had just shipped there.
They're using front loaders to pick up helicopters and bend the frames and, you know, jets, full, like, you know, $1 billion jet. Yeah. $4 billion jet. They just destroy it, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, what are we doing? Why are we just so wasteful?
Why a guy like a billionaire like that can't say, no, I'm gonna countersue you, the federal government, when you sue me for my tax dollars. I'm gonna put those tax dollars that you think you want in a fund over here, and the interest it makes while we have this little argument is gonna go to all nonprofit. We're gonna keep this money over on the sideline. We're gonna go to court and we're gonna have a battle, and you have to expose your books, federal government, and show us. Because I want to know I have the right to know where my money is going. Yeah,
taxation without representation.
Yeah, once you show us every penny, I'll take that money and I'll hand it to you.
Yep.
You know,
it's the same thing. So even on a smaller level, right? Like a local government, like the governor of Colorado handpicks the commission that decides all of the hunting regulations and all the when you can hunt, how you can hunt, do this and that, do that. Why do my tax dollars and the money that I spend on tags and on hunting and on licenses, why does that money go towards a hand-picked selection of people that are against us?
Right.
Why?
Right.
Why is that? That is called taxation without representation. And to me, that is grounds for, it's a suable offense.
Yeah.
Like, I should be able to sue the state of Colorado for not doing what's in the best interest of my tax dollars.
Yeah.
They're doing what's the best of the guy that doesn't even pay taxes, that lives in downtown Denver, doesn't pay taxes and doesn't really work a job. He just kind of collects a check. Like, that guy gets to vote the same as I get to vote. And I'm all for that. But you're going to at least take into account, like, you're going to put people in there that are going to make decisions that are right for my lifestyle as well.
Well, and you say you're all for that as far as his right to vote versus your right to vote. And I would be all for that too, except he should also then have to pay the same percentage.
Exactly.
Tax.
Exactly.
You know, because what you're paying in tax with your income level is hiring several of those people in that office a year. Mm-hmm. And the dude and the thousands and thousands of guys, men and women, that are going to the ballot box that aren't paying a dime in tax are having way more of a say over what's happening, whether it's reintroducing wolves into Colorado or not allowing a hunting season to happen or getting rid of a bear hunting season in Washington. You know, it's it's absolutely frustrating. And I wish, I commend you for, taking a stand. And I actually hope that more, you know, athletes, especially current athletes that are playing, and I know it's a tricky situation, but like I've actually used Russell Wilson as an example. If we get guys like him, let's say in Washington over the last 5 years, before he left Seattle, say, or 10 years, if he'd have been an advocate, and I'm just using his as an example, I don't know that he actually, obviously he doesn't probably hunt, but if he did, if he was an advocate for hunting and used his platform to say, hey, here's this ballot measure, this is why it's not good, this is why conservation dollars, this is what happens to hunting dollars, this is what happens with conservation. When that spring bear hunt comes up on the ballot, it might have lost, because there's a ton of people that follow that guy that would go, well, if Russ says this, it must be. You know, and I hope that more athletes will, we're seeing more and more guys being open about hunting than we ever have before.
Yeah.
Country music stars, athletes, some celebrities, you know, and it's actually interesting because there's a bunch more celebrities that hunt
that you don't even know.
You don't know about, and have like giant trophy rooms.
Oh, yeah.
And
they don't talk about it. You know why? Because they'll get canceled.
But they won't.
If
they would all come out together and say this is the deal.
And we talked about this today at the RMEF when we were sitting in there talking. I wanted to speak up in there, but I was like, I don't know, I'm kind of the younger guy in here, like kind of new. I don't really want to talk yet. Like I'm just gonna listen. But I wanted to get up and say, listen, if you guys want, sorry, my wife's calling me. If you guys want athletes and people that are of influence to step forward, we have to come together as hunters.
Yeah.
To make them feel safe and comfortable to do that. Like, cause I shot that mountain lion and I was like it was full on attack mode.
Yep.
They attacked me full on. And I was like, look, I'm not backing down. Like, I didn't know who was going to have my back on this, and I didn't care.
But what's scary when you're in the league though, like, and you're maybe borderline, let's say you're borderline going to get a contract, not that young kid's coming up, all of a sudden, are you becoming a problem for the Broncos or for the Jets? Or, you know, and it's like, you know, this is a tie. Derek's pretty good on the field, but he's getting older, got this knee injury, and here's this young kid. Derek might be a little better, but he's got these other things going on over here on the side. And all of a sudden, you don't even know, but you lost your job because you were causing a pain in the ass, you know, because of like these things with hunting. And so to your point, having hunters and people be able to rally behind these athletes, these celebrities, people like that actually are willing to step out and stand up for hunting. It's important. You do have to rally behind those people.
Yeah, and that's where we have to come together. The infighting has to stop.
Yeah,
like, because right now, more than ever, they are. I mean, make no mistake, the reintroduction of wolves is an attack on the hunting community, attack on the to them, the far right, you know, like, oh, the evil far right. Like, how can you listen? I am all, if anything, I'd be considered a Democrat, you know, 15 years ago, probably.
Right.
Because I think that people, if people want to smoke weed, whatever.
Right.
I think you should be allowed to keep your guns. I think that everybody that is a citizen has the right to vote. I think that women have the right to choose. I think a lot of the things that are middle of the road.
A lot like Rogan. He went from being on the left to the left moved so far left that all of a sudden he's on the right. You know, a kind of like, you know, that's what they people did. Are like literally like Joe Rogan's a Republican, and it's like, you listen to that guy?
Yeah.
He's not a Republican.
He's not a conservative Republican. Like, it's crazy that they've made it so it's like you have to pick a side now.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, pick a side. No, I don't have to pick a side. All I know is right now it's like the crazies versus the logical thinkers, right? So it's like we're either going to think emotionally and make rash decisions, or we're going to think scientifically and rationally and make rational decisions on anything that pertains to wildlife, conservation, you know, politics or policy. It just blows my mind, right? Like, how are we even having a discussion whether it's okay for a drag queen to come into an elementary school,
right,
and get naked,
right?
Like, really, we're gonna have that art? Right. Like, how can you?
But they'll censor the photo of you with your mountain lion.
Yeah, but me with a mountain lion, it's like, oh, you're
a piece of shit.
Yeah, you're a scumbag murderer.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, whatever, man.
Yeah,
like,
you're what's wrong with society, clearly.
Yeah,
yeah. No, and what you were alluding to with the wolf thing, this is where so many people are buffaloed, and they said it today in the RMEF meeting that we were in, the kind of a conservation roundtable, talking about how we can help with habitat and how we can help with hunting access. And hunting access also means hikers and bikers access, by the way, like everybody's access to the wilderness, to the wild. But like they were saying, none of these groups, none of these people, very few of these people that are involved in bringing back wolves like into Colorado give a shit about wolves, actually.
No.
Like really actually care about the wolf.
Yeah, they don't care.
It's about taking an angle. It's like getting rid of primers. Who really gives a shit about primers for bullets, right?
Right.
Well, what they're really trying to do is make it where you can't use your gun.
Yeah.
You know, the primer is the wolf. I don't give a shit about the primer or the wolf.
They just don't want you to be able to
hunt. They don't want you to be able to hunt, you know.
Because if there's wolves, they're going to destroy the population of elk and deer, which means that you're not killing anything.
Right.
There's nobody. And it just blows my mind. Like, you don't care about the animals. You only care that I'm allowed to go out and hunt.
Yeah.
That's what you care about. Like, they are so offended and so upset about that's what they care about.
Yeah.
It just blows my mind. It's same with most of these, how can you eat that meat? And how can you do this and that? Do you wear leather shoes? Do you unless you're living a completely plant-based lifestyle, but guess what? All those plants that you're eating, you've destroyed a habitat there just to get all those plants.
Right.
They had to clear for those soybean fields. They got to clear a bunch of forest.
Right.
To farm it. They used all this. The same with the climate stuff, right? Like these guys are flying around in private jets going to climate summits.
Right.
While you're dumping fuel
right.
all through, and pumping CO2 into it's just crazy to me. It's like
they're making the plumber feel bad for driving a pickup that gets 10 miles to the gallon.
Yeah. Meanwhile, he jumps on his jet so he can go,
right.
It would be a 4-hour drive, but he'd rather take his jet.
Right. Exactly. Or it's somebody related to Apple who's hiring slaves in freaking China to build their device,
for nothing. And then to take it even further, go to Africa where they're mining for the cobalt.
Right.
And mining for the lithium.
That was a powerful podcast. Rogan had that guy on.
Yeah.
Like, damn. Yeah. No, and we're all, in a small way, complicit with that because, like, we don't think that's right, but we're all still using those devices, right? And it's...
Yeah, same with Nike, right? People are still wearing Nike shoes. People are using Apple phones.
Yeah.
It's like, you could point the finger all you want. It's like, I say this about LeBron, right? Because LeBron's always talking about oppression this, oppression that, but you have $1 billion lifetime Nike deal, and Nike shoes are being made for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, shut the hell up.
Over in China. So are you really for like stopping oppression, or
right.
are you just if you're gonna?
He could stand up there every day and make a difference.
Yeah, he could make a real difference.
Maybe single-handedly change it.
He could end it. He could.
Yeah, it's the modern day Michael.
Yeah,
him and Michael could team up together and stop it next week.
Yeah, but why would they? Because they keep getting paid.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Because what that matters the most is that they get their money.
Yeah, exactly. Well, dude, I want to. We could literally go on for hours.
Oh yeah, I'd go all day.
But I got a guy here. We got to jump on one right before our get together tonight. I do want to talk for a second though. The last thing I wanted to get to with your YouTube channel that you started, with what you're doing and with your connections and whatnot with the athletes and to all this kind of stuff that we're talking about here. I'm super excited about your YouTube channel because we talked here a couple of months ago about you potentially, getting some other guys involved in hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And, we just shot a film last year with Natalie Eva Marie. She's a WWE wrestler, fitness gal and whatnot. And people are like, why the hell are you taking this chick with pink hair hunting? That's this fitness model. And it's like, hey man, she's got 6 million followers across her platform. I think 15 million across her platforms. If we can, in a small way, somehow educate those people, because those aren't our followers, that's
right.
for sure. They're not our kind of people generally. These are people following kind of more of the Hollywood scene. But if they see somebody like her get into hunting and do it in the right way and explain the why, there again, maybe we can down the road affect that ballot issue that's coming up with wolf reintroduction or bear hunting or whatever, land access. And I think similar, you have connections and people that you can potentially get into, to bring into hunting and to show hunting in a positive light, that ultimately is good for the industry as a whole.
Yep.
You know, it helps every business like ours that are in it sell more stuff. It helps conservation groups and the fish, wildlife, and park agencies make more money, which then turns around and they put that into habitat restoration, you know, animal and habitat conservation. So this Wolfe Untamed YouTube channel, I think, is going to be something that's going to be, and obviously, even since we talked, between the Rogan thing, you killed this giant lion.
Yeah.
Like, you're out there all over. Now you're on the cover of
Eastman's
magazine.
Yeah.
Those guys are awesome at Eastman's.
Oh, they're great. Great people. It was fun to do.
I enjoyed it. I'm stoked about, you know, you're just barely starting off into this YouTube channel, but it's going to be freaking epic.
Yeah, it should be good. It should be good. We're going to do a lot of cool things. You know, even like doing things with veterans and bringing guys that you would never hunt, right? So Travis Kelsey I was going to take him on a hog hunt. You know, but he had to do Saturday Night Live, and then I was doing Rogan, so it kind of like didn't match up. But I am going to have guys like him, guys like Von Miller that like Von loves to bow hunt, like he loves it.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, dude, I'll do an episode with you. Like we'll figure it out. You know, we'll work it out. DeMarcus Ware, he doesn't even bow hunt, but he really wants to get into it. And the more that these guys see me doing it and see how much I enjoy it, the more they're interested. I could feel them like reaching out to me, like, hey. That was cool, you know, this and that. Like, if go look on my Instagram and see all the comments from former players, they're like, dude, that's cool. Like, they don't even hunt, but they're into it.
Well, and they're seeing that you're doing it, and also like you're beating back some of the haters, but like, oh, he's doing this and not being canceled. Like, I can actually go do that.
Exactly.
You know, and I see like Ben Roethlisberger. I know he's friends with Levi Morgan, and I see he's hunting, and I know a lot of these guys have hunted before. But again, like. Obviously, Ben's a guy. A lot of these guys are guys that have just retired. None of you guys really had time to be out there and doing it hard when you were playing.
Yeah. To be taken serious.
Like, I don't care from the standpoint of, you know, if people are like, well, I don't really care if watching athletes hunt and stuff. And it's like, whatever, dude. I'm sure the fans of theirs will love watching them hunt. For me, I'm excited about it because I think it's good for hunting.
Yeah.
In general.
Yeah. And that's the point. That's my goal.
Yeah.
You know, my goal in all this is to like I keep saying, like to bring us together.
Yeah.
To bring us together as hunters so that we can fight the good fight together.
Yeah.
Instead of like, you know, because the other side, they are all together on this, right? They have one goal, and it's to make us so we can't hunt.
Yeah.
They don't want us to hunt. So they're going to do everything they can. But like on our side, we're fighting and arguing about, you know, whether you use a crossbow or a longbow or a compound bow. It's like all these little infight, whether you wear Sitka gear, or I wear King's gear, I wear Kuya gear. It's like, well, who cares?
Yeah.
I don't give a shit.
Right.
We have to come together because at the end of the day, we're all conservationists.
Right.
And it's like the conservationists versus the antis. That's what it's got to be.
Well, and the messaging behind making people understand, you know, like the Pittman-Robertson Act and how much money is going from the sale of sporting goods and licenses and whatnot back into conserving animals for the bird watchers.
Yeah.
You know, and for the bikers and the hikers. And, you know, there is no tax on going and hiking on a trail in Colorado.
No.
There's no tax to go watch birds in western Montana. But there sure shit is a tax on all of your hunting stuff to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. You know, it's hunting that drives and pays for all that.
Yep.
You know, and it's something that I think is super important that we as brands in the outdoor industry, you know, you as personalities and like with a YouTube channel, all of us, you know, the guys that are really famous hunters have to do a better job of getting that word out there. And then, like you say, coming together and not arguing about this stupid bullshit.
It's all dumb. It's all ego.
Yeah.
It's all ego driven. Like, we got to put the ego aside, man.
Yeah.
Because we're going to lose it all.
Yeah. We can still argue about, you know, if you should be a Broncos or a Chiefs fan. We can argue about that tomorrow. But today, we got to be together on this thing.
Right.
You know, and then, yeah, let's pick up our argument tomorrow. It'll be fun. You know.
Exactly.
We'll keep arguing about, are you a real hunter if you use a gun? You know.
Yeah.
No, you're only a hunter if you use a bow. Who gives a shit about that? Today, we need to figure out how to stop this thing or to make sure this continues.
Yeah, we got to make sure we can keep living this life. Because if not, I mean, their intentions are to end it. They want to end it all.
Yep, 100%. Well, dude, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, man.
I appreciate it. We got to do this again. We're going to go bear hunting in June.
Can't wait.
We'll have to do another one of these then, and maybe post bear hunt podcast.
Oh, we should do a pre and post.
Yeah.
You know, do like a little pre event, you know.
Yeah, how we think it's going to go and then what actually
what actually goes on out there.
Yeah.
It should be fun. I'm really looking forward to that.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you.
Yep, thanks for having me, brother.
Appreciate it.